guy with a jetpack and a machine gun can do a lot of good, particularly in a world where alien beings and flying saucers lord over hapless humans. That happens to be the case in Darkvoid. You'll fight against opposing forces on the ground and in the air, but despite its versatility, this fairly ambitious action game is in for a bit of a struggle.
Our gods have come to save us, to show us the way to our salvation.
Darkvoid is set right around the time the Second World War is starting to cook on the world stage. You play as a cargo pilot named Will, who's been sucked into an alternate universe via the Bermuda Triangle. There, he meets up with the famous inventor Nikola Tesla, who hooks him up with some alien blasting technology and helps what's left of humanity fight back against the oppressive extraterrestrials known as the Watchers, all while trying to figure out if his old girlfriend still digs him.
Isn't it time to do something? To get involved?
And what difference would it make, Ava?
While it initially seems like rich material with a touch of classy retro style, the story just doesn't have any meat on its bones. Despite being well delivered, the cheesy dialogue doesn't reveal anything interesting about the game's characters, and it's hard to care about the people you're supposed to be out there saving.
Who are you?
A humble guy.
As in so many other games, you'll find your primary motivation is blowing things up.
You know how to handle that?
What do you think?
Fair enough.
Darkvoid's decision to place equal importance on ground and air combat actually pays off. You'll have access to a fully functional jetpack for the majority of the game, giving you the ability to hover or zip around even while the main battle is taking place on the ground. When your feet are on the floor, you can make use of a cover system that's similar to what you'd find in almost any other modern shooter, which also happens to work when you're descending into a cavern or climbing the face of a cliff. In other battles, the action focuses on aerial dogfights, and your feet may not even touch the ground. Darkvoid is at its least fun when you can't fly. Things are a bit slow in the early game before you earn your wings, and one late game scenario temporarily takes away your jetpack, and the result feels limiting without being interesting. Despite these instances where the game seems to ignore its biggest strengths, Darkvoid is dynamic enough to maintain your interest through a 10 or so hour adventure, even if the large-scale air battles all feel very similar, and a plotting escort mission near the end of the game throws a monkey wrench in the pacing. Darkvoid focuses exclusively on delivering a single-player experience, which is normally okay, but because its experience isn't particularly replayable, the lack of multiplayer or other modes is a bit conspicuous.
Have you asked yourself how it is you are able to do the things you do?
Hell, I just try to stay out of my own way.
With unfeeling, robotic-looking enemies seemingly unwilling to sit down and talk things out, bullets, or maybe concentrated blobs of energy, are clearly the answer. Shooting in Darkvoid isn't exactly revolutionary, but it's got one or two interesting ideas, and is pretty sharp on a mechanical level thanks to a competent cover system. Vertical cover works almost as well as horizontal cover, letting you quickly cover distance and giving you a different perspective on gunfights. While it's satisfying to blast your enemies apart with the game's different weapons, especially when you're using your jetpack to quickly switch up your angle of attack, a few small issues detract from the experience. Melee attacks are possibly too useful, but look and feel kind of canned and interrupt the flow of combat, while weirdly accurate blind fire from behind cover almost feels like cheating. Different weapons feel useful and can be upgraded with noticeable improvements, but there's not much tactical reason to use one gun over another, and enemies seem to have trouble figuring out how to engage you. More than anything, it's the ability to fly around at will that makes the game fun. You can activate your jetpack's flight mode indoors for super quick maneuvers, but just because you can doesn't necessarily mean you should, so expect some comical accidents if you point yourself in the wrong direction. Out in the open, you can do simple tricks like quick direction changes or barrel rolls to avoid damage, and hover around when you need to focus on a stationary target. There's no real lock-on feature, so shooting down nimble enemies can be a challenge, but responsive flight controls and the ability to hijack enemy craft make it possible to emerge victorious anyway. Darkvoid certainly has some personality, but it doesn't always present itself in the most flattering light. Despite its interesting setting, the game just doesn't have much visual impact. Whether you look at a character modeling and animation, environmental detail, or special effects, Dark Void occasionally exhibits some style, but noticeably struggles to keep itself steady.
They do not see it, but I do.
The game fares a little better with the ears, though, with the score by Battlestar Galactica composer Bear McCreary that successfully reinforces the game's World War II sci-fi vibe. Nolan North, the guy that voices Uncharted's Drake and a whole lot of other dudes who sound like dudes in games recently, saves Will from being totally unlikable, with well-delivered dialogue, considering his cliched and cheesy lines.
Wait, you're just gonna smile? Say hello like nothing happened? Ava, where the hell were you?
Dark Void's single real achievement is the way it blends in the air and on-the-ground action without creating a horrible accident of compromise. While the game can be a lot of fun on a mechanical level, it's not quite different enough to feel like a brand new experience, and there are enough minor yet noticeable problems that make it harder to appreciate the overall package. Like the hero Will, if you're going to strap on this experimental jetpack, you'll experience certain thrills, but you can't expect things to go off without a hitch.